Hey everybody, welcome to Ren Space. This is Ren and this is episode 3. If you haven't watched episode 1 and 2, I'll link it down in the description. So the topic for today is the Villisca axe murders. On a cold street in Villisca, Iowa, there sits an old white frame house. It is one of many houses in the neighborhood, but unlike the other houses, this house remains abandoned. On close inspection, the doors are noticed to be tightly shut. On the front of the house, there is a sign that reads the Villisca Axe Murder House. On Sunday evening, June 9, 1912, Josiah Moore and his wife Sarah took their 4 children Herman, Catherine, Boyd and 5-year-old Paul to the Children's Day service at the Presbyterian Church. Accompanying them were Lena and Ina Stillinger, neighbors who had asked their parents' permission to stay overnight with the Moore children. The Children's Day service was an end-of-the-year Sunday school program. Sarah Moore was a co-director. The service ended with a social mingling that lasted until at least 9:30 p.m. When parishioners left on that cloudy, damp and cold night, no one suspected that neither the Moores nor the overnight guest would be seen alive again. They walked the 3 blocks to their home and all went to bed. The Moore family was sleeping peacefully in their beds. Joe and Sarah Moore were asleep upstairs while their 4 children were resting in a room down the hall. In a guest room on the first floor were the Stillinger sisters. Sometime after midnight, the killer or killers picked up Joe's axe from the backyard, entering through the unlocked door, and plucked an oil lamp from a nearby table, rigging it to burn so low it supplied light for barely one person. The stranger held the lamp, lighting the way through the house. In his other hand, he held an axe. Ignoring the sleeping girls downstairs, the stranger made his way up the stairs, guided by the lamp and a seemingly unerring knowledge of the home's layout. He crept past the room with the children and into Mr. and Mrs. Moore's bedroom. Then he made his way to the children's room and finally back down to the bedroom downstairs and bludgeoned to death all 8 of its occupants. Then, as quickly and silently as he had arrived, the stranger left, taking keys from the house and locked the door behind him. By 7:30 on June 10th, Mary Pickham, an elderly neighbor to the west, became concerned that the Moore house seemed quiet and deserted. She called Joe's brother Ross, a local druggist, who arrived at about 8 a.m. to look around. His cautious inspection of the downstairs revealed 2 figures covered in sheet in the back bedroom, and he also saw blood on the bedsheet. Ross stepped back away from the crime scene and called Joe's hardware store, telling employee Ed Selly to fetch Marshal Henry Hank Horton because something terrible had happened. Hank arrived about 8:30 a.m., went through the house and found, as he told Ross when he came out, quote, "somebody murdered in every bed," end quote. The partially cleaned murder weapon was left leaning against the south wall of the downstairs bedroom, where the visiting Stillinger sisters were found. The police determined that the Moore parents had been murdered first and with obvious force. The axe that had been used to kill them had been swung so high above the murderer's head that it gouged the ceiling above the bed. Joe alone had been hit with the axe at least 30 times. The face of both parents as well as the children had been reduced to nothing but a bloody pulp. All the victims were found in their beds, their heads covered with bedclothes. The Moore Stillinger funeral service was held in Villisca Town Square on June 12, 1912, with thousands in attendance. At 5:19 a.m., the morning following the murders, the Reverend Lynn George Jacqueline Kelly left Villisca on board the westbound number 5 train and allegedly told fellow travelers there were 8 dead souls back in Villisca, Iowa, even though the bodies had not been discovered. Kelly had arrived in Villisca for the first time the Sunday morning of the murders and attended a Sunday school performance by the Stillinger sisters before departing early Monday. He returned 2 weeks later, joining a tour of the murder house with a group of investigators. Authorities first became interested in Reverend Kelly a few weeks after the murders, after being alerted by recipients of his rambling letters. He had also been convicted of sending obscene material through the mail and had spent time in a mental hospital. On August 31st at 7 am, Kelly signed a confession to the murders, saying God whispered to him, quote, "Suffer the children to come unto me," end quote. His case went to the jury on September 26. The jury deadlocked 11 to 1 for acquittal. No one else ever has been tried for the murders. On June 10, 2004, Fourth Wall Films released a documentary feature film, Villisca Living with a Mystery. 10 years in the making, the documentary explores the possibility that the Villisca crime and similar murders in Monmouth, Illinois, Colorado Springs, Colorado, Ellsworth, and Kansas may have been the work of one of America's first serial killers. The crime remains one of the most horrific, unsolved mass murders in American history. So this brings us to the end of episode 3. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, stay safe, and peace.